Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Lie here. In this Civ overview, we're going to be taking a look at the Japanese. The last time we looked at the Civ in depth was in 2016, and Japanese have had a few nice changes since then, with Samurai and Cavalry Archer buffs, making them now arguably better than ever. At the same time, stats-wise, especially for 1v1 high-level Arabia, they're really not doing great, so they're a little out of fashion these days, but in my opinion are still among the most fun civilizations to play, and far from the weakest for the majority of the player base, where their focus on flexibility and infantry are a lot more viable than I think they get credit for. We'll go through their bonuses and techs, and then talk about how I like to approach the civilization as my most played civ. To start with their team bonus, Japanese galleys have 50% more line of sight. Keeping in mind, despite the name, this does not apply to fire galleys. Now 50% is a bigger jump than it sounds, where they see 50% farther, but end up seeing more than twice as much at any one moment. This can be nice for map awareness, and having a better idea of other navies' location and size than they have of yours. Japanese are actually a very good water and excellent hybrid map civ, though the team bonus really isn't the reason for that. To see why they're the #1 most popular choice on 4 lakes and many hybrid maps, instead we need to look at their civ bonuses. The first is that their fishing ships have double the usual HP, +2 Pierce Armor, and work faster, increasing through the ages as you advance. To take the durability aspect first, this increases the shots they take from galleys with fletching from 6 to 14, as well as double the damage taken from fire galleys. In fact, for a bit of perspective, a fishing ship can complete an entire fishing run in less than the time it takes a galley to bring it down. On a map like Nomad, where you maybe aren't sure how strongly you're contesting water, that durability gives you some extra time to read the game's situation and respond if you're caught off guard. Assuming your fishing ships aren't attacked though, that's even better, as you then benefit from faster collection. With 4 fishing ships, this is usually between an extra 20 to 30 food in Dark Age, and always puts you in a nice position to keep up with villager production, then growing to somewhere between 100 and 150 food ahead of your opponents by Castle Age, with even just 4 fishing ships. If anything though, it becomes more interesting in Imperial Age, when the bonus jumps to a full +20%. At that point, with fish traps, the Japanese bonus slaps, going from the usual 25 food per minute with gill nets to about 30 food per minute. Keep in mind, boring old farms max out at 24, while having a worse food-to-wood ratio, since Japanese lack crop rotation. This gives Japanese fishing ships a nice use case on Black Forest or any map with safe lakes, where you can make a lot more food than usual by using fish traps over farms with the same population in a much smaller area. The flip side of the bonus is on a pure land map, you're effectively playing down one of your major eco bonuses, though you still have one, next up with their camps and mills costing 50% less. This has the greatest impact early on, saving you 200 wood if you get the standard 2 lumber camps, 1 mill, and a mining camp. In terms of total resources, it's one of the best Dark Age bonuses in the game, and what's nice is you don't have to do anything different than usual to benefit. One common way to maximize the bonus is to move one early villager from wood over to food, helping with a faster uptime to feudal, leading to a strong scout, men-at-arms, or archer opening. That said, typically by the mid-game, players use town centers instead of camps to secure additional resources, and wood also becomes quite easy to get past a point. So while it's theoretically still useful in Imperial Age when saturating mines or replacing lumber camps, it's definitely not as impactful after the early game power spike that it gives. That brings us now though to what you can spend those extra resources on with their military bonuses. The first is Japanese infantry attack 33% faster, starting in Feudal Age. Naturally, this makes their men-at-arms among the most dangerous against enemy scouts, villagers, or at breaking through buildings, which is the main application of the bonus in competitive 1v1. That said, it really opens up options throughout the game, with Japanese longswords being able to trade cost-effectively against knights, and faster attack on pikemen, making them arguably the most anti-cavalry spearline in the game, as you get their bonus damage applying more often. In Imperial Age, especially team games, their champions and halberdiers can then also shine, and while your infantry can lose in a vacuum to the Goth Strong Discount or Slav Druzhna, on the list of classic blunders, going head-to-head with Japanese infantry is number 4, purely because of this bonus. It's no surprise a lot of Japanese best matchups feature civilizations that have a higher likelihood of using infantry, like Goths or Aztecs. Their other military bonus is a relatively new one, giving their cavalry archers +2 attack against archers, though not including skirmishers. Cavalry archers are a very on-meta unit these days, and especially with this bonus are now a great option to shoot for in late Castle Age depending on the civ matchup. Unfortunately, they still have the same weakness to skirmisher units as usual, but it helps in many other situations. First, they hold up very well against other cavalry archers, who count as archers in this case, beating other top tier ones head to head, which is very nice in, as I said, a cavalry archer heavy meta. The definition here of archer is then very broad, applying to not just archer and cavalry archer variants, but even things like the wrath in melee mode, camo archers, hand cannons, and slingers, for example. Probably the most important matchup though is they do a third more damage against the crossbow line, translating to one fewer attack needed against those. On one level, you could argue they at least soft counter crossbows in Castle Age, though admittedly are much harder to get going because of all the important upgrades, one less range, slower creation time, higher cost, and a longer attack delay, which hurts your micro. I wouldn't say this new bonus makes Japanese an anti-archer pick or forces you to go into cavalry archers, but does make the transition from early Castle Age crossbows into cavalry archers easier against a civ like Mayans or Britons. And given the number of units it applies to, it's a bonus that comes up even if you don't go out of your way to use it. So those are their bonuses, hitting on water maps, early eco, infantry, and cavalry archers. If it's not obvious yet, Japanese have a bit of a jack-of-all-trades vibe going on. Next, we'll take a look at their unique unit, the Samurai. As always, I recently looked at this unit in extra depth as its own video, but for summary overview purposes, they're not that far off the swordsman line in terms of stats, with a notably faster attack and movement. On the flip side, they're more expensive in terms of gold and even food after supplies than the longsword, and have one less pierce armor after gambesons, so there are some trade-offs. In terms of bonuses, they deal plus 10 growing to plus 12 against unique units, which includes any made from a castle, dock, or is a standalone unit like Condottiero, Slinger, or Geniteur, which don't upgrade something already existing in the tech tree. Even outside that specialty, Samurai are generally solid in melee situations, particularly when countering melee unique units, but can even take a fight against knights cost effectively. They also work as an anti-trash generalist well enough, even if the Japanese champion line is a bit more gold efficient in that role. And they're also very effective at defending castles against rams, given their just 9-second creation time. On the other hand, like most infantry, they're weak to ranged units, even ranged unique units, while having a relatively high gold cost for infantry. Overall, they're situational, but they can be a faster tech switch than the champion line, are surprisingly fast at raising buildings, and are a great tool for countering bots, though by no means are a default unit choice for Japanese in 1v1s. Stick to using them in the right situations against melee units or buildings, and they'll treat you well. Staying at the castle, next let's take a look at their unique techs. The first is Yasuma, which adds 2 extra arrows to all of your towers. And while Japanese lack Bombard Tower, this can make your keeps maybe even better than those anyway. Depending on a target's armor, you can get about half the damage of a castle and 2/3 the attack of a Bombard Tower over time. Though considering the high rate of fire and less overkill, I personally think there are situations they work better than Bombard Towers, while also not costing gold and being much less stone than castles for the same map coverage. Most typically, they're used defensively to deter enemy raiding, but can also be used offensively to entrench a slow push, especially on team games. Maybe the one downside is it comes at the stone cost of potential castles, and building too many towers can then make it harder to produce trebuchets. Why would you be so concerned about that? Well, Japanese have the most fun trebuchets in the game, of course. Their next unique tech, Catapuruto, lets their trebuchets pack in a quarter the usual time and fire a third faster. It's not that expensive, but takes a full minute to research, so maybe it won't be the first tech you grab in Imperial, but if you've used these, you know how fun they are, adding some surprising mobility to your army. In mass, they can be used as a relatively effective area attack, especially against onagers and bombard cannons, then being able to quickly pack up and retreat. But even without the mobility aspect, they still take down castles, enemy trebs, and buildings a third faster. So that's their unique unit and techs. Part of why I love the Civ is first the bonuses include Navy and Cavalry Archers, the unique unit is Infantry, and the unique techs then push towers and Siege. Someone might say the Civ feels a bit all over the place, whereas I see it as endless possibilities, and admittedly you either like that aspect of them or you don't. They still have a few surprise strengths left in store though, which we'll find in the tech tree, starting with the Archers. Here you have basically everything, including the extra wood savings early, bonus damage for their fully upgraded cavalry archers, and you even get hand cannoneers as an option late. The only issue is just that you don't have a direct bonus for the crossbow line, so very strong crossbow civs can outcompete Japanese head-to-head, but with this kind of tech tree, it's still a very solid A-. Next up for infantry, it's again a broad tech tree, and in addition to the faster attack rate bonus applying from feudal age onward, you also have the samurai as an augment in some situations. I'm gonna save the A+ level for Goths and stick with just an A, but Japanese are definitely up there with other top tier infantry, and their halberdiers are a go-to late game unit. Moving on to cavalry, I feel like it gets a worse rap than it deserves. You have a great scout rush with 150 to 200 wooden savings with then fully upgraded Castle Age knights. A stable in late feudal or on the way up to Castle Age is not a bad plan with Japanese, particularly if you're up against a lot of skirmishers, which either scouts or even better 1 or 2 knights can help clean up. Late game, they fall off hard though, lacking the final armor, and their light cavalry raids really aren't that great. Overall, I'd say it's a B, acknowledging Imperial Age is a notable weakness here. Next up for siege, you have the basics, but lack siege ram and bombard cannon, leaving the workshop feeling below average. Though if you add in their trebuchets, I think it brings them back up to a reasonable B-. Catapruto doesn't come in as often as I'd like in 1v1s, but if you can get there, it's a lot of fun. Moving on to the Navy, you get out to a fantastic start with the wood savings on camps, plus the fishing ships have more durability and faster collection rate. I don't put a lot of stock into the team bonus, but overall think it's an A when opening on water or on hybrid maps. Late game, you're missing the heavy demo ship, but the real issue is just that you don't have an impactful bonus. Despite an open tech tree, I actually think they drop down to a B+ on water late, propped up a bit by excellent fish traps, for an A- on water overall. As for the monks, it's again a really good tech tree, and this is an aspect of the Civ that hasn't come up yet. There's no direct bonus, but Japanese have very solid monks, featuring the combo of redemption and block printing, helping you snag enemy siege from long range. I like it enough for an A-. Next up for defenses, you're missing a few things at the university, though I think that's more than made up for by the unique tech Yasuma, which I see as making their keeps a legitimate replacement for bombard towers at a cheaper cost. While in the early game you don't have anything to help defensively outside of more fishing ship HP, I'd still say it's an A- overall. A well set up Japanese player turtling can be very hard to push at times without bombard cannons. And finally, for their trash units, the halberdiers are an A+, and the skirmishers are a B, but the light cavalry are a C. The lack of a strong raiding unit can be a pretty big disadvantage, to the point I've seen players roll with halberdiers as their raiding unit in a pinch. Still, the American civs can get by with worse, and I'll say it's a B- for trash. So to close with some final thoughts on strategy, the beauty of their large wood savings early is you have a lot of choice in how to open, with nothing in the early tech tree leading into a dead end. Man-at-Arms is a less common opening these days in general, but Japanese still do it well, either paired with towers or followed up with archers. Given the predictability of that though, it's not uncommon for Japanese players to try mixing things up and open with scouts, and moving a villager from wood to food early can help a lot with a competitive feudal time. You also see just a straight archery range opening as well, commonly with a stable follow-up at some point to counter the predictable skirmisher mass your opponent will often try to counter with. Generally, those quick decisive games are the high point for Japanese, after which they can definitely struggle, though not for lack of options. In the mid-game, upgrading surviving archers into crossbows, later transitioning into cavalry archer, is the most straightforward default plan if you're playing into the meta and looking to benefit from their newer bonus. But scouts into knights, and even their good monks, as we saw, can be mixed in as well. Alternately, you can just embrace longsword and siege, which in mid-elo I think is written off more than it should be. I'm not saying to do all of these compositions in the same game, of course, but a lot of the Japanese strength is in playing off multiple types of units and transitions. Moving into Imperial Age, fully upgraded cavalry archers are always a popular choice, but infantry paired with any ranged unit in siege tends to be well-rounded, while especially in team games, towers can also be a unique way to contribute and help with map control. As for good maps, while they're okay-ish on Arabia, for understandable reasons they tend to be more popular and have greater success on Four Lakes or similar maps with fishing, making them also a solid pick on Nomad. Personally, I love the variety they bring to the table, making them one of, if not outright, my favorite civs still today. Speaking of which, if you're interested in following my AV2 fan blog, where I talk more about my favorite civilizations, units, and heroes, be sure to check out my new website, Spirit of the Law here. It took me just minutes to set up and start creating content on, thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a great-looking website, engage with your audience, and then sell anything from products to content to time all in one place. Using their built-in templates, you can easily customize a website to your preferred aesthetic and what you're looking to do with it. That could include selling physical goods or digital content, including access to your own video library, with Squarespace handling the payment side of things so you can focus on the bigger picture. The search engine optimization tools then help your website show up in searches more often, so you can continue to grow and scale your business more effectively. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So that was a revisit of the Japanese. I'm looking forward to doing this again in another 9 years, hopefully by which point samurai will have a ranged attack, Katapruto lets their trebuchets fire 3 projectiles at once, and their monks will have area conversion. We'll see if the devs accept those and other suggestions I've submitted, as we need to get Japanese back over a 50% win rate. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.